Should we all, cut our fingers open and bleed on it?
With 3 feature-length movies, multiple video games, and a whole book series, The Blair Witch Project is now a pop culture icon and a horror franchise. But it didn't start that way. With a few cameras and a group of amateur actors and an extremely low budget, the filmmakers of The Blair Witch Project not only set out to create some horrific horror, but fool everyone in the process. Learn how the 1999 film fooled everyone into believing that it was real, how people still believe it to this day, and how the legacy of the Blair Witch Project has influenced horror movies forever. The year is 1999. The decade was dominated by the teen slasher genre with films like Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Halloween H2O, and urban legends scaring up audiences and raking in the dough. And then along came The Blair Witch Project. There was no masked villain, just an entity in the woods. There was no sleek filming, a pop music-infused soundtrack, or stars plucked from Dawson's Creek. The budget of the film hovered around $60,000, and by the end of its initial run, The Blair Witch Project would go on to gross nearly $250 million worldwide. But how did that happen? Well, the origins of The Blair Witch began back in 1997, when a couple of ambitious filmmakers decided to make a fake documentary short on the Blair Witch and got the short to air on the IFC show Split Screen. Through the 8-minute short, directors Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez were able to get enough funding to make a feature-length version of the movie. Hiring 3 amateur actors for the parts of the documentary crew, the movie would be a far cry from any type of Hollywood production. For the majority of the scenes, the actors were left in the woods with a few notes and pretty much had to film everything on their own. Conditions were rough and the actors would only get to leave the woods and spend a night in a hotel if the things were too much to handle or they desperately needed a break. The movie aimed to be as authentic as possible, and this was shown with the shaky cameras, quick zooms, and the lower quality when compared to traditional Hollywood productions. While the filming itself was important, the marketing plan for the Blair Witch Project is what helped build word of mouth for the film and allowed the movie to reach peak levels of hype. Before any footage or teaser trailers were even released, an official Blair Witch website was launched. Amazingly, the website still exists today, with all of the links working and access to everything originally published on there. The website may seem outdated, but in 1999, this was pretty much life on the internet. Visitors to the Blair Witch Project website were treated to a number of sections which made the whole thing feel more authentic. There were timelines of both the mythology behind the Blair Witch and the 3 missing filmmakers. Screenshots appeared from the found footage, along with shots of the tapes and film reels the police supposedly discovered. Even more intriguing were the images of the journal Heather wrote while exploring the woods. There was no copyrights or links to a movie studio. Everything on the website felt legitimate and helped build up the mythos of the film. There was even an extensive message board where people posted theories, debated the legitimacy of the movie, and gave their own experiences exploring the Maryland woods. The first glimpse of the actual film came at the 1999 Sundance Film Festival. With a midnight premiere and a sold-out crowd, the anticipation was riding high on the film, and everything paid off. Artisan paid over $1 million for the distribution rights to the Blair Witch Project, and the movie's train to success just kept rolling along. The Blair Witch filmmakers quickly realized they needed to keep the ruse up as long as possible. During Sundance and in the days that followed, actors Heather Donahue, Michael C. Williams, and Joshua Leonard did interviews, photo shoots, and post-screening questions and answer sessions. But that would all come to an end. There would be no red carpet premieres, interviews with Jay Leno, or a chance to explain their motives behind the film. The 3 actors were essentially wiped away from the limelight, and in their place, missing persons posters. Posters were plastered all over the United States featuring their images and details about the day they entered the woods. During the early days of the Internet Movie Database, the actors' pages for the 3 stars were listed as missing, presumed dead, and would remain this way for nearly a year following the year's release. Fake interviews with fictional relatives of the characters were posted online as they agreed for Hacks on Films to edit together the footage to help get some answers. With no stars or actors to interview, the story of the missing filmmakers felt even more real, and the filmmakers pushed things even further. In the week leading up to the film's July 1999 release, another fake documentary was released on the Sci-Fi Channel. The documentary looked into the mystery behind the Blair Witch, how the witch was created, and how disappearances have built up in the small town. The plans all seemed to work. Everything was clicking. and the Blair Witch Project's wide release on July 14th, 1999 felt more like a documentary than an actual horror movie. An ambitious piece of work like this could only have been done before the always connected internet age. In today's time, screenplays leak, cell phone footage, and thousands of people who dig deep into foiling internet rumors would have easily debunked the story of the Blair Witch. But we didn't have information at our fingertips in 1999. Media wasn't so manipulative, and we couldn't load up countless YouTube videos debunking the whole Blair Witch theory with evidence, film permits, and pictures of the actors in real life. So while smaller debates may have raged on, a lot of people went into the movie thinking they were seeing something real, and the movie itself pretty much felt like it. Once people started seeing the film in droves, the mythos behind the Blair Witch grew even further. Before becoming viral was even a thing, the Blair Witch Project reached unprecedented viral success. The box office numbers indicated a massive success, with the film making almost $30 million in its first week of wide release and sticking around the top 10 for several weeks after that. But with the Blair Witch Project, the film's release was not about the numbers. People couldn't stop talking about it. The shaky footage made people sick and they had to leave the theater. The intensity of the movie forced people to leave as well. People began sharing their own similar experiences. People wanted to go out and find the bodies of Heather and the film crew. The Blair Witch hanging stick people became a popular icon, which was used on a variety of merchandise, Halloween decorations, and plenty of pranks. Besides the intense scenes and psychological mind games the characters went through, there were a couple of elements that really helped the movie elevate the scares. The first was the opening title text. In October of 1994, 3 student filmmakers disappeared in the woods near Burkittsville, Maryland, while shooting a documentary. A year later, their footage was found. The hook is built right into the opening text. No visuals were even needed. The same text would be used on movie posters and a lot of promotional material for the film. After watching the text, we are instantly inserted into their story. There's no music, no opening credits, nothing fancy. Just a glimpse into the lives of 3 people making a documentary. Long before Instagram stories or Facebook Live made this type of thing a daily routine. Another aspect that helped the Blair Witch truly feel authentic and create scares was the witch itself. She was never shown. There was nobody in a large monster suit. We didn't see a shadow against the wall. And despite 1999's Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace being filled to the brim with CG, the Blair Witch Project relied on no digital effects. The unknown presence of the witch is what made the film so scary, and what also led to one of the biggest criticisms of the remake, something we'll touch on here a little bit later. We see the filmmakers' perspective as they make their way through the woods and eventually to the abandoned house. But it's our own minds who create the monster. Everyone visualizes something different when they watch the Blair Witch, usually conjuring up our own worst fears and placing them into the narrative we're given on screen. This element of horror is what helps elevate the intensity of the film. The success of the Blair Witch Project was felt across all types of Hollywood headlines. Roger Ebert, a film critic who is typically pretty harsh on horror films, gave the movie 4 out of 4 stars. It was hailed as the most profitable independent movie of all time. And once the VHS and DVD copies got released to local blockbusters and movie rental stores, middle school children could get their hands on the movie, enjoy the scares, and build the legend of the Blair Witch even more. Even as the hype settled down, people still believed in the film and the footage. For the actors, nabbing parts became more of a challenge. For those who were skeptical of the Blair Witch Project, their suspicions were confirmed when Heather Donahue appeared in the romantic comedy film Boys and Girls a year after Blair Witch, and later would go on to star in multiple episodes of Steven Spielberg's miniseries Taken. The success of the Blair Witch Project led to many low-budget ripoffs and parody films, but it also helped a whole subgenre of movies, the found footage film. While the Blair Witch Project wasn't the first movie to rely on the found footage concept, it was one of the first major successes and mainstream effort that helped put the style on the map. In the years that followed the Blair Witch Project, we've seen many other found footage films hit the big screen. This includes other horror movies like Paranormal Activity and Apollo 18. The genre has branched out into movies like Chronicle and Cloverfield as well. As we surpass 20 years since the debut of the Blair Witch Project, the found footage concept has been seen in recent films like Unfriended and Searching. As technology advances, filmmakers filmmakers are finding new ways to utilize the found footage concept while still showcasing the roots presented in the Blair Witch Project. The franchise itself even has 2 official sequels. Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2 was a rush sequel looking to build on the success of the original, but was largely panned and is nothing like the first film. In 2016, Blair Witch was released, and the movie is a direct sequel to the first film. The found footage effort follows James Donahue, the fictional brother of Heather Donahue, as he tries to find his sister. The film was made in secret and released to a lot of hype, but ultimately did not create the same buzz and excitement as the original. The film did build on the original, using cell phones, drones, and higher quality cameras to capture some unique footage and presented scares in different ways. The spirit was definitely there, but the movie still fell a little flat. One of the biggest issues was near the climax of the movie when the footage actually showed their vision of the Blair Witch. The reveal was not only kind of a letdown, but the low-budget CG effects completely pull the viewer away from the story. The Blair Witch should always be an unseen entity, one who lurks in the shadows and remains just as mythical as the stories that surround her. The timing and build of the Blair Witch Project is something that could never be recreated. A huge part of building the scares and intense atmosphere was the authenticity the filmmakers brought to the role. Any new reboot or remake of the Blair Witch Project will not have the same feeling because we are aware of the original. Each new film will not have the same authentic factor as the novelty has worn off. The whole marketing campaign would be another impossible factor with social media, video websites, and marketing being completely different than it was in 1999. Every generation seems to have a horror movie that expands beyond the big screen. Jaws made people legitimately scared to go to the beach. A Nightmare on Elm Street made people afraid to go to sleep. And the Blair Witch Project made people afraid to go into the woods. The low-budget film will have an impact and legacy in the horror genre for years to come as the story and found footage style still holds up over 20 years later. Now that you know the true story of the Blair Witch Project, it's your turn. What memories do you have of the movie? If you saw it years later, what are your thoughts now? How does the film still hold up 20 years later? Let us know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to Screen Rant for more great movie content.